Very excited to be able to bring to you this video. I've made what I think is a significant discovery that will benefit systematic savers such as yourselves. Please consider carefully what you are about to see. If you find any flaws in the analysis, please be sure to point them out so that I can continue to refine this method. If you recall from my last video titled Long-Term Metal Stacking and the Impact of Timing, I presented the long-term dollar rate of return of metal accumulation strategies. I pointed out that over 45 years, a person who accumulated gold and silver in regular amounts consistently would have had a 7.4% per year rate of return in gold and a 6.8% per year rate of return in silver, in dollar terms. I also showed that timing of purchases in this long-term framework only impacted the rate of return by about 0.5%. So a person who had really good timing every year could only expect to increase his or her rate of return by 0.5%. The conclusion of the work was that it was the disciplined long-term approach that unlocked these benefits for the saver. I had many questions about that video, asking about various ways to use price signals or the gold to silver ratio to improve upon the long-term performance. I was not able to find any strategies that significantly improved upon the results of disciplined accumulation. The strategies that relied upon specific price points or ratios also had the disadvantage that they relied too heavily upon past data for the determination of strategy parameters. For example, the best gold to silver ratio to use for pricing over 45 years was 50:1. This magic number could not have been known back in 1968. It is only known now, in hindsight. There is no guarantee that the 50:1 ratio will be the right ratio for the next 45 years. And when I backtested the results with different ratios such as 40:1 or 60:1, the results weren't very good. But I've given the subject quite a bit of thought over the past couple of days and came to conclude that the systematic approach that I've personally been using for metals accumulation provides results that are much better than what you see here on this slide. Best of all, the policy does not rely on any adjustable parameters that cannot be known in advance. All it requires is the knowledge of how much you would like to have saved by a certain point in time. Thus, it is a stacking policy which, if followed with discipline, should provide you with very satisfactory results going forward. So please stick with me, and I'll show you how it works. Before I show you my stacking policy, let's discuss first what makes for a good stacking policy. By policy, I mean a system of rules that are followed every month in order to reach a well-defined goal. I have my own, which I will show you. You may or may not have your own. If you don't, you might consider thinking about setting one up. After all, the best way to achieve a goal is to first know what the goal is, and then decide how best to get there. The qualities of a good stacking policy are as follows. First, it has to be well defined. You need to know clearly what your goals are. It is preferable to document them somewhere so that you can review your progress against your goal periodically. You also need a well-defined set of rules to follow. This will prevent you from being knocked off track when market conditions change. An example of a well-defined rule is to buy a fixed weight of gold or silver every month regardless of price. I'm not advocating this approach, only providing an example of a well-defined rule. I can't stress enough the importance of having good rules to follow ahead of time. You see, as investors, we tend to be an emotional bunch. It's tempting, in the face of a steep price decline, to sell everything and never look back. That might be a good thing to do for a stock investment because a rapid price decline might be signaling the imminent doom of a company, but it is the worst thing to do for a metals saving plan. Selling on weakness is one of the things that you can do to guarantee that you are going to fail. Secondly, the policy has to be easy to follow. It has to be easy to understand. It has to be easy to explain. Any set of rules that are too complicated to follow are likely not to work in the future. Complexity is the enemy of robustness. Keep that in mind. Lastly, a policy needs to be predictable. You need to know, really know, that the policy is going to work. In our case, we need to guarantee that the policy will result in wealth preservation, and we need to guarantee that we will achieve our stated goals. Now here's the policy I've adopted for my personal savings. The first step is a monthly review. I start by reviewing my savings goal. I personally have more than one goal, but that can easily be incorporated into this strategy. I'll review the goal and the date of my goal and perform a sanity check to see if the goal needs minor modifications. For example, my retirement goal is stated in terms of a number of years of take-home salary. If upon careful review I discover that prices are going up faster than my take-home pay, I might elect to increase my savings goal. The second step is to convert the goal in terms of dollars. It will become more clear why this is important after I show you the results later. So in the case of my retirement goal, I will multiply the number of years of salary I'd like to have saved up by my current salary. The third step is to look at the inventory of my precious metals holdings. I will calculate the dollar value of my holdings by using the market value in that given month. This step may be tricky if you hold many exotic coins. It's much easier to do with plain bullion bars and common bullion coins. Once you get into exotic precious metals, the sale price can be a matter of opinion, more so than a matter of easily determined fact. The fourth step is to subtract the market value of your metals holdings from the amount that you'd like to save to calculate how much additional savings you will need in order to reach your goal. The fifth step is to determine the number of months you have left to meet your goal. The sixth step is to calculate your required monthly savings by dividing the total amount you have left to save by the number of months that you have left in which to do it. And the final step is to buy as much bullion as you can with the cash that you need to save. This is done every month without fail. This method is very simple to apply. You're virtually guaranteed to meet your savings goals because every month you take stock of where you stand and then adjust accordingly. The beauty of the method is that when the price of your metals holdings fluctuates relative to the cost of what it is that you are saving for, your method will take advantage of the price swing. If gold drops in price, for example, you'll find that this method will call for you to buy more to make up for the decline. Then, when the price reverts back to its original level, you'll find that you'll have more metal to reward you for increasing your purchases during the price decline. Conversely, when the price rises, this method will automatically result in buying less. Best of all, this method automatically will automatically happen independently of any arbitrarily determined pricing signals. So you really don't need to know any key ratios or price points ahead of time. Let's put together a hypothetical case to understand why this approach generates value for the stacker. We'll assume that there's no inflation for this case, and also assume that the price of gold fluctuates cyclically. Every 60 months, it goes through a high, it goes through a low, but it is essentially trendless and does not increase in price over the long run. Conventional wisdom would state that an investor would be foolish to put his money in something that had volatility but no price trend. But let's see why this conventional wisdom is wrong. Let's suppose that an investor had a target of buying a $180,000 house in 10 years and wanted to pay cash for it. In our hypothetical world without inflation, that would mean that the person would need to sock away $1,500 per month for 120 months until the goal was reached. Let's see what happens when my stacking policy is applied. In month 0, our investor takes $1,500 and buys an ounce of gold. Over the next 15 months, our investor checks each month and notices that the price of gold has declined significantly. The value of his stack continues to grow because he's adding more ounces every month, but the amount of cash he needs to save each month goes up a little bit to make up for the price decline. In other words, the price has declined, and the automatic response of the stacking policy is to buy more ounces. For the next 30 months, the price of gold rallies. Our investor notes each month that the value of his stack is going up pretty quickly, and it's likely he'll hit his goal ahead of schedule. So he responds by reducing the amount of cash that he spends on gold each month. By the end of month 45, he's saving a little over $1,000 per month instead of the original $1,500. Over the next 30 months, the price of gold declines again, and our investor finds he needs to increase the rate of savings considerably to make up for the decline in the value of his stack. The amount of money he needs to spend on gold increases to a little over $2,000 per month. Fortunately, our investor decided that instead of spending the excess available cash he had available between months 30 through 60, he'd keep it handy as a cash cushion in case the market value of his stack declined. Over the subsequent months, the price of gold rallies again, to the point where he meets his goal of accumulating $180,000 early. At this point, he stops saving, sells his stack, and buys his house. So other than the fact that the stacking policy forced our saver to buy more gold when the price dipped and buy less when the price rose, what are the key features of this exercise? Well, for one, the amount of cash our investor spent on gold during this time frame was $136,828. The amount of cash he got for selling his stack was $182,856. In an inflation-free world, this worked out to a profit of $46,000. Based upon the timing of the cash flows, this works out to a 7.3% per year rate of return. That's not too bad for a trendless investment, right? The other thing that we can note is that the goal was met in 94 months. This is 26 months ahead of schedule. Can you imagine applying the same approach to your retirement savings goals and realizing your goals in 20% less time than you thought was necessary? So let's go back and compare a few stacking policies and see what they would have meant for our retirement investor who had 45 years in which to accumulate wealth. Using the strategy I outlined in this video would have resulted in an 8.8% per year rate of return in gold, which is almost a full 1.5% better than the rate of return that could have been realized by purchasing fixed inflation-adjusted dollar amounts every month. It is nearly 3 full percentage points better than buying a fixed quantity of gold every month. This may not seem like much, but a 3% per year advantage is huge when taken over long periods of time. It only takes 23 years before my stacking policy results in twice the wealth accumulation as the fixed amount of gold every month policy. What's more astounding, and probably more interesting for the silver-oriented investor, is that my policy results in a 9.2% yearly rate of return when applied to silver. This is even better than the result obtained with gold. This is quite noteworthy, considering that the other accumulation strategies in silver were inferior to gold over time because gold has held its value better than silver has. So given that silver's long-term trend was weaker than gold's, where does this advantage come from? Well, it's the volatility of silver price. The stacking policy outlined here buys more on weakness and less on strength. This turns volatility into an advantage. One thing I should point out though to the silver stacker: as you approach your goal and your stack is quite large, a drop in the silver price may result in a very large required increase in your savings rate to make up for the difference. If you're relying solely on your salary as a source of savings, you may not have enough cash to take advantage of the dips. It is for this reason that when silver is strong and your required savings rate is lower than you should set the cash aside somewhere so that you have a cash cushion available to take advantage of price weakness. So that wraps up this video, and I'm very happy to be able to bring this one to you because I think that the findings are significant and can be of great benefit to the disciplined stacker. If you like what you see here, please share it, please give it a thumbs up, and let's help spread the word.